When it comes to intimacy, a woman's heart and mind play a far greater role than most people realize, and understanding her emotional readiness is the very foundation upon which true closeness is built, because intimacy for a woman is not just a physical connection, it is a deeply emotional and spiritual experience that requires safety, trust, and emotional resonance. And before a woman allows herself to open up to someone in such a vulnerable way, she has to feel that her heart is understood, that her emotions are validated, and that she is valued not just for her appearance, but for the essence of who she is, which means that rushing her or trying to skip the emotional process will almost always create resistance, because for her, intimacy is not just a moment, but a reflection of how deeply she feels seen and cherished. And when a man overlooks this emotional dimension, he unintentionally creates distance instead of closeness, because what she needs is not just attention, but emotional alignment, the reassurance that she is safe to let her guard down. Emotional readiness in a woman is not something that can be forced or demanded. It is something that blossoms naturally when she feels that her heart is protected, when her feelings are acknowledged, and when she senses a level of emotional intelligence in the person she is opening up to. And women are incredibly intuitive. They can sense energy, tone, and intention before a single word is spoken, which is why it is so important to approach intimacy with a depth of presence and genuine care, rather than a goal-oriented mindset. Because if your energy feels rushed or transactional, she will instinctively pull back. But if your energy feels patient, calm, and grounded, she will feel safe enough to lean in. And this safety is what creates the space for intimacy to thrive. Because for a woman, intimacy is not about performance, it's about connection. And the readiness she feels is a direct reflection of how emotionally secure and cherished she feels in your presence. To truly understand her emotional readiness, you have to be able to read between the lines, to pay attention not just to what she says, but to how she feels when she is around you, because women often communicate their emotions subtly through shifts in body language, tone of voice, and energy. And when she feels emotionally seen, when she feels that you are attuned to her signals without judgment or pressure, she starts to relax into her femininity, and that relaxation is what opens the door to deeper intimacy. But if she senses that you are disconnected from her emotional world, if she feels that you are not truly listening or that your attention is elsewhere, she will not feel safe enough to give you her vulnerability. And it is in her vulnerability where true intimacy lies, because intimacy for a woman is about feeling emotionally intertwined. It is about letting you see the parts of her that she doesn't reveal to the world. And that level of closeness cannot exist without emotional readiness. A woman's heart operates in layers, and those layers are often shaped by her life experiences, her upbringing, and her previous relationships. And if she has been hurt or betrayed before, her emotional readiness may take longer to develop, not because she doesn't desire intimacy, but because she has learned to protect herself from pain, which is why patience is not just a virtue, but a necessity when it comes to intimacy. Because by showing her that you are willing to honor her pace, you are proving to her that her heart matters, that she is not being rushed into something she is not ready for. And this alone builds a powerful sense of trust, because she begins to see that your desire for closeness is not rooted in selfishness, but in genuine care for her emotional well-being. And that is the foundation upon which intimacy can flourish naturally, without pressure or resistance. When a woman feels emotionally ready, it shows in the way she opens up, the way her guard slowly comes down, the way she lets you see her softer side. And this emotional openness cannot be bought, manipulated, or demanded. It can only be earned, and it is earned through presence, through consistency, through an unwavering sense of safety that you provide in every interaction. And when you understand this, you begin to see that intimacy is not just a moment of physical closeness. It is an extension of emotional closeness. And emotional closeness is built over time through trust, empathy, and deep respect for her boundaries. And when she feels that respect deeply, when she senses that you value her heart as much as her body, that is when emotional readiness turns into desire. And that desire creates intimacy that is not fleeting but deeply fulfilling, because it is rooted in connection rather than conquest. And that type of intimacy is what makes a woman feel not just wanted, but truly. Women communicate in ways that often go beyond words. And when it comes to intimacy, her cues are rarely expressed through direct statements, but through subtle changes in energy, behavior, and body language, because a woman's heart reveals its readiness not always through verbal confirmation, but through the quiet signals she sends when she feels safe and desired. And it is in those silent messages where the truth of her emotions lives. Yet many people overlook these signals because they are too focused on what is being said rather than what is being felt. And understanding a woman on a deeper level requires an emotional intelligence that pays attention not just to what she does, but how she does it, because her comfort and openness are reflected in her posture, the softness of her gaze, the way she leans into your presence, or the way her energy shifts when she feels emotionally attuned to you. And when you are fully present and connected, you begin to notice that these cues are like a private language, a language that reveals whether she feels safe to be vulnerable and whether she is open to intimacy that goes beyond the surface. Reading her subtle cues means learning to quiet your own mind so you can truly sense her energy. Because women are naturally more emotionally expressive, but their deepest feelings are often guarded until they sense that the person they are with can hold space for their vulnerability without judgment. And this is why true connection requires more than just conversation. It requires attentiveness to the small details, like the way her breathing changes when she feels relaxed, the way she unconsciously moves closer when she feels safe, or the way her laughter sounds more genuine when she feels understood, because these small, almost invisible changes speak volumes about how deeply she is opening up emotionally. And when she is opening up emotionally, intimacy becomes a natural extension of that emotional safety. Yet if you miss these signs or ignore them, she will instinctively feel misunderstood. And that misunderstanding creates emotional walls that make intimacy feel forced rather than organic. A woman's cues often show up in her comfort levels, and one of the clearest signs of emotional readiness is how she carries herself around you. Because when she feels emotionally connected, her body language softens, her guard drops, and her interactions become more fluid and natural. But when she feels disconnected or unsafe, she becomes guarded. Her gestures are more restrained, her tone changes subtly, and her energy feels distant even if she is physically present. And this is where emotional intelligence plays a key role, because being able to sense her state of mind through these small signals allows you to adjust your energy and approach, creating a space where she feels seen, heard, and respected, or expressing herself with a softness that signals trust. And these are powerful indicators that her heart is opening. But even at this stage, subtlety is key, because intimacy is not about pushing or rushing, but about responding to her comfort and energy in a way that makes her feel valued. And when she feels that you respect her pace, she begins to lean in more, not because she feels pressured, but because she feels safe. And this safety is what creates a strong emotional foundation for intimacy that feels mutual and deeply fulfilling. Because the truth is that women do not separate emotional connection from physical closeness, and their cues and signals are a reflection of this inner alignment. And when you learn to read these signals with sensitivity, patience, and empathy, you unlock a deeper level of connection that is rare and incredibly powerful. When it comes to building intimacy with a woman, respect is not just a polite gesture. It is the very foundation upon which her trust, her openness, and her willingness to be vulnerable are built. Because for a woman to allow someone into her heart and into her most private world, she has to feel safe, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. And that level of safety can only be created by someone who carries himself with integrity, with calm energy, and with a deep sense of respect for her boundaries, her emotions, and her individuality. Because intimacy for a woman is never just about closeness. It's about surrender. And surrender requires trust. And trust is only built when she senses that you honor her pace, that you respect her comfort, and that you care more about connection than instant gratification. Because a woman who feels respected will naturally want to draw closer, while a woman who feels pressured will instinctively pull away. Respect is felt in the way you listen to her, in the way you speak to her, and in the way you respond when she expresses her feelings or hesitations, because true respect is not about agreeing with everything she says, but about showing her that her emotions matter, that her inner world is valued, and that her voice has space in the relationship. And when she feels that space, she begins to let go of her defenses, because most women carry emotional walls, not because they don't want intimacy, but because they've been conditioned to protect themselves from pain, disappointment, or disrespect. And when she senses that your presence feels like a sanctuary, a place where she doesn't have to fight for understanding, a place where she can simply exist and feel cherished, her heart naturally opens. And that is when intimacy stops feeling like something to negotiate and starts becoming a natural expression of the bond you share. Emotional safety is not created through words alone, but through consistency, because anyone can say they respect someone, but respect is proven in actions, in patience, in the ability to stay calm when emotions rise, and in the way you treat her even when you're not seeking something from her, because emotional safety is about showing her that her heart will not be mishandled, that her vulnerability will not be used against her, and that her body is not the only thing you desire, but that you also crave her soul, her energy, and her essence. And when she truly feels this, she feels a level of freedom in your presence that allows her to let go of control, because women who feel unsafe tend to overthink, overanalyze, and hold back. But women who feel safe naturally soften. They lean in and they let intimacy grow without fear or hesitation. To lead with respect means to understand that intimacy is not a transaction. It is not something you get from her, but something that is mutually shared. And the way to create this mutual desire is to consistently show her that her well-being comes first, that her boundaries are not obstacles, but invitations to earn her trust, and that you see her as a whole being, not just a physical presence, because women crave depth. They crave connection that feels secure. And when they sense this security, their natural feminine energy begins to flow effortlessly, creating a dynamic where intimacy feels magnetic instead of forced. And that is why patience is so essential, because when a woman feels rushed or objectified, she becomes guarded. But when she feels honored and valued, she begins to crave closeness, not because of pressure, but because she feels deeply connected. Creating emotional safety also means being attuned to her nonverbal signals, because there are times when words will not tell you everything you need to know, and this is where emotional intelligence comes in. Because by noticing when she seems hesitant, when she withdraws slightly, or when she needs reassurance, you show her that you are truly paying attention. And when she feels understood on this level, she begins to associate your presence with peace. And that peace becomes the foundation of intimacy, because a woman's desire for closeness is deeply tied to how safe she feels. And when she feels safe, she doesn't just give you her time or her body, she gives you her trust. and that is the greatest gift a woman can give. Leading with respect and emotional safety also requires self-control and emotional maturity, because anyone can be attentive when things are easy. But emotional safety is proven when things get challenging, when disagreements arise, or when her emotions feel overwhelming even to herself. And if in those moments you can remain steady, calm, and grounded, you become a source of stability in her life. And stability is deeply attractive to a woman because it makes her feel that she doesn't have to carry the emotional weight alone, that she can relax into your energy and trust your presence. And when she feels this level of security, intimacy stops being a question of when or how, because it becomes a natural reflection of the emotional connection you've built, a connection where she feels deeply respected, endlessly safe, and completely desired in a way that honors her soul. Trust is the very heartbeat of intimacy, and without it, no relationship can ever reach the depth that allows two souls to feel truly intertwined. Because trust is not something that can be demanded or expected. It is something that must be built with consistency, patience, and emotional presence. And for a woman, trust is the invisible bridge that allows her to feel safe enough to let her guard down, to share her vulnerability, and to give herself fully, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, because intimacy for her is a reflection of how deeply she feels secure in your presence, and that security is not created by empty promises, but by actions, by energy, by the way you consistently show her that her heart is valued and her emotions are safe with you. And when a woman feels this safety, she begins to blossom in a way that is rare and beautiful, because a woman's trust is not freely given, it is carefully earned. Deep emotional connection is the pathway to this trust, and it is built not through grand gestures or superficial conversations, but through emotional depth, the kind of depth where she feels that you are truly attuned to her, that you see beyond her words, that you understand the emotions she struggles to express, because women feel closest to those who take the time to study them, to learn their emotional rhythms, to see them beyond their physical beauty, and to value their essence. And when she senses that you truly care to understand her, that you listen not to respond but to feel, that you are patient with her emotional complexity instead of dismissing it, she begins to open her heart, because she feels that her emotions are not a burden to you, that her soul is not too much for you. And this is not about oversharing or overwhelming her with your struggles, but about being present, being emotionally grounded, and being willing to engage in conversations that go deeper than the surface. Because intimacy is not just built in physical moments, it is built in the way you talk to her late at night, in the way you hold space for her when she feels fragile, in the way you honor her emotions even when you don't fully understand them. And this emotional depth is what makes her trust you with her heart. For a woman, emotional trust is everything, because it determines how safe she feels in your presence, and safety is deeply tied to desire, because a woman cannot truly desire what she does not trust. And this is why so many relationships fail to reach emotional depth, because they lack trust, and trust is not something you can buy or manipulate. It is something you earn through emotional maturity, and maturity is shown in the way you respond to her, in your patience when she tests you without meaning to, in your ability to remain steady even when her emotions feel overwhelming, and when she sees this strength in you, not the kind of strength that dominates, but the kind of strength that protects. She begins to soften, and in that softening, she begins to crave closeness, because she feels safe enough to let go of control, to let you in, to trust you fully. And that level of trust is what transforms intimacy from a physical act into a spiritual bond. When you build trust through deep emotional connection, you are no longer just someone she is attracted to. You become someone she feels deeply tethered to, someone she feels anchored by. And this kind of intimacy is rare because it is not rooted in desire alone, but in emotional depth, in understanding her on a level that very few people ever will. And when a woman feels this kind of connection, she gives herself freely, not because she feels pressured, but because she feels chosen, protected, and safe. And that is the kind of trust that makes intimacy effortless, because it is born not from seeking pleasure, but from building an unshakable emotional bond that makes her feel deeply loved. Desire is a powerful force. And when expressed with emotional intelligence, it has the ability to make a woman feel beautiful, cherished, and deeply desired in a way that makes her trust you and open up even more. But when desire is expressed carelessly or selfishly, it has the opposite effect, making her feel reduced, objectified, or undervalued. And this is why the way you communicate attraction matters just as much as the attraction itself, because women crave to feel wanted, but not in a way that makes them feel like they are being consumed or judged. They crave to feel desired for their essence, for their energy, for the unique way they move through the world, not just for their physical features. And this is where emotional depth becomes a game changer, because desire without respect feels shallow, but desire rooted in admiration feels intoxicating. And when a woman senses that your attraction to her is deeper than her appearance, she feels seen. And that feeling of being seen is one of the most powerful ways to build closeness. A woman's heart responds to desire differently than a man's, because for her, intimacy is deeply emotional, and when she feels desired only for her body, it creates a wall between you, making her hesitant to let her guard down. But when she feels desired for her soul, her spirit, and her mind as well, she feels safe to embrace closeness without fear. And this is why it's so important to express your attraction in a way that uplifts her rather than objectifies her, because every woman has a deep longing to feel like more than just a body. She wants to feel like her energy is magnetic, like her presence is captivating, like she brings something unique and irreplaceable to your life. And this type of desire is not just verbal. It is in the way you look at her with genuine admiration, in the way you respect her boundaries, in the way you cherish her essence rather than trying to possess her. And when she feels this level of intentional desire, it awakens her feminine energy and makes her lean into the connection naturally. Expressing desire without objectifying her also means being deeply aware of your energy, because women are intuitive and they can sense the difference between genuine admiration and lust that feels transactional. And when your desire is rooted in emotional connection, it feels safe. It feels grounded, and it draws her in rather than making her pull away, which is why emotional safety must always accompany desire. Desire without objectification also requires restraint, not in the sense of suppressing your attraction, but in expressing it in a way that feels respectful and patient, because a woman wants to feel like she is chosen and cherished, not rushed or pressured. And when you show her that you can control your impulses, that you value her comfort above your own wants, she begins to trust you. And that trust makes her even more drawn to you, because emotional maturity is deeply attractive to a woman, and she will always feel safer with someone who has the self-awareness to honor her boundaries rather than push against them. And when she senses this level of maturity, she begins to crave your presence, because your energy feels calming rather than overwhelming, and your desire feels genuine rather than selfish. And that is when intimacy begins to unfold naturally, because she feels wanted in a way that makes her feel treasured rather than used. Women thrive when they feel deeply desired and fully respected at the same time. And this balance is rare because so many people either overexpress desire in a way that feels aggressive or suppress it completely in an attempt to be respectful. But true connection comes when you can communicate both at once, when your admiration for her is evident, when your attraction is undeniable, but it is wrapped in tenderness, patience, and reverence. And this makes her feel like she is not just a body you want, but a soul you cherish. And that feeling is what unlocks her trust. And observing without expectation. Because when you allow a woman to feel like she has the space to open up at her own pace, she begins to trust you. And that trust becomes the key that unlocks deeper intimacy, because women do not just respond to physical chemistry, they respond to emotional chemistry, and emotional chemistry grows in an atmosphere where there is no rush, where she feels like her comfort matters more than the moment. And this makes her feel truly seen, because a woman will always gravitate toward the person who makes her feel emotionally safe. And emotional safety cannot be built without patience, because every woman has a story. Every woman has her own rhythm, and honoring that rhythm is what makes her want to let you in. Emotional attunement is what makes patience so powerful, because it is one thing to wait, but it is another thing entirely to wait while being deeply connected to her emotions. And emotional attunement is the ability to sense how she feels without her having to spell it out. It's the ability to notice when she needs comfort, when she needs space, when she needs reassurance, and when she feels ready to get closer, because women feel deeply understood when they do not have to constantly explain themselves. And this understanding creates a bond where she feels emotionally aligned with you. And alignment is the foundation of intimacy, because for a woman, desire and trust are inseparable. And when she feels that you are in tune with her, she feels that trust on a soul deep level. And that trust makes her want to bring down her guard. Being emotionally attuned requires presence, because you cannot sense her emotions if you are not truly present with her. And presence is more than just physical closeness. It is about giving her your undivided attention, your energy, and your focus. And when a woman feels that you are fully present, she feels valued, because presence is one of the rarest gifts you can give someone in a world that is constantly distracted. And when she feels valued in this way, her heart naturally begins to open, because she feels like she is with someone who truly cares, someone who sees her beyond her exterior, and someone who honors her emotions, even the ones she struggles to put into words. And this kind of connection cannot be faked, because women can sense authenticity, and they can sense when your interest in them is genuine, and that authenticity is what allows intimacy to develop without fear or hesitation. Timing also means knowing when to lean in and when to pull back, because closeness is a dance, and in every dance there are moments of approach and moments of space. And understanding this rhythm is what makes intimacy feel effortless rather than forced. And this understanding comes from observation, from listening deeply, from noticing how her energy shifts in different environments, and from respecting her boundaries even before she has to voice them. Because when a woman feels that you respect her unspoken boundaries, she begins to see you as someone she can trust deeply. And that trust becomes a foundation for desire, because a woman who feels safe will naturally want to give more of herself. She will naturally want to let you in. And that is why timing is not just about waiting for the right moment. It is about creating the right moment through emotional connection and respect. Patience and emotional attunement are not signs of weakness or passivity. They are signs of emotional mastery because it takes strength to slow down. It takes maturity to prioritize connection over gratification. And it takes self-awareness to recognize that intimacy is not a prize to be won, but a bond to be nurtured. And when a woman sees that you are capable of this level of self-control, it draws her in even more because she feels like she is with someone who values her heart, not just her body. And this is what awakens her trust. Because when a woman feels fully understood, deeply respected, and completely safe, she begins to crave closeness on her own. And this closeness is not something that has to be asked for. It becomes something she freely gives because she feels emotionally aligned. And emotional alignment is the deepest form of intimacy. At the heart of intimacy lies something far deeper than physical closeness. It is a sacred exchange of trust, vulnerability, and emotional connection that